Yo guys, hey, what's up? It's your boy here, Kenneth. Been a minute since I did a video, um, but I'm been busy with a lot of things. I really try hard to stay consistent with this stuff. Um, but yeah, so what we're going to talk about here is Eric Bischoff, Paul Heyman, being the new lead directors for Raw and SmackDown Live, respectively. Um, like I said, I've been up to brass with everything, like I always am with wrestling. I just never get around to getting the chance to talk about these things. So, the John Moxley interview with Talk is Jericho and Wade Keller 2 days later after that, Seth Rollins, some would say defending the WWE, taking a stance for WWE on Twitter, but also kind of come across as a dick, and having like a Twitter feud with like Will Ospreay and whatnot. Has since apologized for it. AEW coming this weekend, Fight for the Fallen, as well as All Out next month. All these things and more I'm going to be talking about, and a couple other things too, recent stuff about Impact Wrestling, MLW and whatnot. Anyway, but the purpose of this video here is talking about Paul Heyman, Eric Bischoff being creative directors for SmackDown Live and Raw. Heyman directing Raw, Eric Bischoff directing SmackDown Live. Both men are going to be answering directly to Vince McMahon. This was huge news. It was breaking news. So huge that I think Sports Illustrated that broke the news, and then WWE followed up with it. My thoughts to this: I say this is good. This is a good idea. This is something that WWE desperately needs, because they just, like I said, I made a whole like 30 to 35 minute video a month ago, talking about the morale of WWE being at an all-time low. And it is. It really is. WWE needs a kick in the ass. And it's not going to be from AEW or some other, competition. It's going to be from WWE themselves. WWE are going to fail due to their own, them being incompetent. Them being competent, them being ignorant to their own shortcomings, and them being not keeping up with the times. That's going to be WWE's own downfall. Not AEW, not New Japan, not UFC. It's going to be WWE. All those other things will have factors to WWE, but they're not going to make a dent in WWE's overall failure. So this was huge news. So last week and just yesterday's Raw last week, I will start with that. Last week's Raw was like the first kind of like test run for Paul Heyman's direction of Raw. So last week's Raw, I thought it was okay. A lot of people were on the internet were giving it high praise. They were saying this is the best Raw of the year, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, there were a couple cool stuff in it. There were some things in that you could definitely say, okay, this is definitely Paul Heyman. Has his finger in this segment or in that segment or whatever. You could poke holes in some things and say, okay, this was Paul Heyman. But to me, the overall show of Raw, I thought it was still kind of dull. It was better than the week before, but to me, it was just still kind of meh. And I'm not expecting these things to change overnight. It's going to take some time. So for anyone who thinks that, hey, Paul Heyman directing Raw, SmackDown under the leadership of Bischoff, things are going to be like, Peachy King running like a well-oiled machine. No, they're going to. It's going to be a trial run. A lot of the stuff we're going to see on TV, some of it may be good, some of it may be bad, but it's going to be a trial and error thing, seeing what works, what sticks, under the direction of these two guys. Bischoff has not yet taken over creative role for SmackDown just yet. Apparently, Bischoff at the age of 64, he is moving into Connecticut. Is it Connecticut? I think it's Connecticut, where WWE's headquarters is. He's moving. from where he's stationed. I don't know where Eric Bischoff is living from or where he resides, but he and his wife are uprooting from where they live, go flying out to Connecticut and planting their feet in Connecticut for Bischoff to work. So this is a big deal for Eric Bischoff to want to come and do this. Now, Paul Heyman, we know Paul Heyman we call him a wrestling genius, an evil genius. He is a guy that keeps up with the times. Paul Heyman is a creative guy. So to have Raw under his direction and his influence is a good call. Bischoff, this is what a lot of people got to understand. Yes, Bischoff was, I guess you could say, one of the creative minds behind the NWO and WCW and whatnot. But you got to understand, Bischoff, before anything else, is a businessman first. He's a businessman first before he's a wrestling fan. Like, got to get that out of the air. So, Bischoff is a TV guy. He's a businessman first and foremost, above anything, and then he is I guess you could say, a wrestling fan second. So Bischoff's vision may be totally different from what Paul Heyman's vision would be for Raw, and that's okay because you want two different shows. So Bischoff's the right call because with SmackDown going over to Fox, a new network, Bischoff's a network guy. He knows what it's like when he was the head of WCW and working with TNT. Bischoff was a smart guy, so he's the right guy to put under SmackDown, because he can probably build good relations with the Fox network. I just read a couple of days ago or recently that it's reported that both Bischoff and Paul Heyman want a WWE draft, a real draft, not a shakeup, not a wild card, a draft, a legitimate draft after SummerSlam, because they want their own completely two separate shows. I think if these rumors come out to be true, I hope there is some truth to it, because that's absolutely what needs to happen. Both shows need to feel different. Both shows, need to feel different and feel separate. I've heard that they even want to change the looks of the shows to make them unique and different. Because both Raw and SmackDown, they look the same. Like both the shows, they don't look different anymore like they used to like 10, 15 years ago. Both shows look the same. They feel the same. Just one is 3 hours longer than the other one. And it's colored red. I'm sorry, not 3 hours longer, an hour longer than the other one. So my opinion on this, on the positive note, I think it's a good thing. I'm willing to give it a try. Like I said, I'm not expecting a miracle overnight because it ain't going to happen overnight. This is going to take some time. I don't think we'll get the full effect of Paul Heyman and Bischoff and their creative influence on both shows. I don't think we'll fully feel it until after this Sunday's pay-per-view. Because right now, Extreme Rules, there's kind of a stench going into Extreme Rules. There's a few bright spots in Extreme Rules, but this pay-per-view coming up this Sunday is really not all that hyped at all. So I think that we're going to really get or start feel the full effect of Bischoff and Heyman's creativity on both shows going into SummerSlam, which at this point, that's probably the best time to do it. SummerSlam, second biggest pay-per-view of the year. Go for it. Again, like I said, Bischoff has yet to come into play with SmackDown Live just yet, but Paul Heyman is already slowly transitioning into his creative role for Raw. Now, that's a positive thing. Devil's advocate, Vince McMahon. At the end of the day, these guys have to answer to Vince and Kennedy McMahon. Vince McMahon is the guy that's running the show. He's the guy that, has the final word and final say on everything. The biggest question coming out of this is, will Vince McMahon ease up on his micromanagement and give Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff not necessarily maybe the keys to the palace, because I don't think Vince is going to do that, but kind of ease up a little bit on his micromanagement and let Heyman and Bischoff do what they do. That's the biggest thing coming out of this. because I've said it before. Hell, Solo Monster has said this plenty of times before in his podcast. And a lot of other famous wrestling podcasters said the same thing. If doesn't matter who you put in the creative power seat, if the if the creative direction or the writing for the show still plays to the audience of one, being Vincent Kennedy McMahon, there is no hope for WWE in getting better. It's not. So yes, this news is exciting, but for me, it's kind of a wait and see approach. It's a wait and see approach for me. I can't, sing the praises of WWE until I see actual change. 24/7 title, wild card rules, that stuff don't stick with me. It's crap. I know a lot of people really enjoy the 24/7 title segments and gimmick. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but hey, I'm one person compared to the other, maybe thousands of people that do enjoy it. But like I said, it's a wait and see approach. So out of all of the ideas that WWE have been trying, and I will give them credit for it, it's a shame that it's taken them this long to finally kind of wake up and smell the coffee a bit. But it's about time that they're trying to do things to try to make things different. And out of all the ideas they've had so far, like I said, the 24/7 stuff, the wild card rule, garbage crap, this is the best bit of news that WWE has had in a long, long time. I look forward to seeing what these guys do. I hope there is some legitimacy and some truth to this draft. Both men wanting a draft and wanting their own two separate shows and want to change the look of both shows. I hope that's the case. I hope they change the title belts, the look of the title belts, because that's another thing I'm not too very fond of. It's a slight nitpick. I mean, changing title belts is not gonna hurt or help the creative direction of Raw or SmackDown. But I mean, it's just little things, just to kind of make it feel separate and different. Make the WWE title look different. Make the Universal title look different. Make the women's title and maybe the women's title you probably keep the same. I don't know, but change something with the belts. I mean, really, truly kick it off as a new era of Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff. It's going to be interesting to see. These guys have never been in this type of position before. 15, 12 years ago, Eric Bischoff was just an on-screen character, general manager. Paul Heyman was the head writer for Smackdown, but he had to answer to Stephanie McMahon, who was the producer for Smackdown. So to have both of these guys to have high key positions now that they did not have 15 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, to say rather, it's going to be interesting. You guys let me know what you think about Paul Heyman had taken over Raw. Eric Bischoff taking over for SmackDown Live down the road. What do you guys think about this? What are you expecting to see from these two guys? What did you think of Raw from last night and the week before, which had some influence of Paul Heyman, some of Paul Heyman's influence sprinkled through already? Are you guys kind of like me, where you're a little bit optimistic, you're glad to hear this piece of news, but you're still kind of on the wait and see approach and kind of see what materializes? I want you guys' thoughts in the box below. Do yourself a favor, hit that like button, and subscribe. Peace.